Worship.
All right, thank you very much, Kayla, and welcome all of council to our council meeting here on the 28th of June, 2021. I welcome all of our staff that are joined us for today's council meeting as well. I just want to acknowledge that Connie Leishman, Councillor Leishman, advised me she would be a few minutes late. She's just delayed doing something, so she will join us at another time here during this meeting. I'm not sure just when, but she did say that she would try to join us. So, Madam Clerk, I'm sure we have quorum, so we can continue on with our council agenda. So, council, it's a pretty simple agenda. Well, simple. It's got a good agenda today, let's just say, and we've got some content here to cover. So, we have a public meeting a little bit later on, and we've got a few presentations from people that are joining us as well. So, let's get started. Item number 1 is our closed session. There is no closed session for today's council agenda. And item number 2 is the approval of the agenda. Recommendation, be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby approve the agenda dated June 28th, 2021 as presented. Can I get a mover and seconder on the motion, please? Thank you very much. Deputy Mayor and Councillor Broderick, I think I saw your card there. Sorry, I'm just reaching for my cards here. Oh, sorry, I turned off my camera. Guess I hit the wrong button. I'm just looking for my cards. Here we are. Members of council, we got a mover and seconder on the motion for the agenda, so I'll call the motion. All those in favor? Sorry about that. Yeah, that carries. Thank you. Council, disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Has anybody got a disclosure for today's council meeting? Nope. Thank you. All right. If anything comes up, of course, during the meeting, please bring it forward. We'll deal with it at that time. Members of council, item number 4 is our public participation period. There is one public participation that was sent in, a question from Mr. Dave Witzke. It's in regards to weed spraying, specifically about poison ivy along the rail trail. And he asked some questions about the section of the trail that goes from the 2728 basically through to Centennial Park, sort of in the northwest sort of section of the town of Stayner here in Clearview. And so I can give him a brief answer, and that is that the County of SIMCOE are the owners and operators of the trail. They provide the maintenance on the trail. Clearview Township does have a maintenance agreement with the County of SIMCOE for the portions that are within the town of Stayner proper. That little section right there that you're mentioning, basically from the 2728 to, let's say, Highway 26, I'm unsure. And I reached out to our Director of Public Works, Director of Recreation and Culture, Terry. He's on vacation, so I didn't get a specific answer on that. However, I did receive a word from a foreman from the department to advise that we can, if council desires to go and deal with the weeds and or poison ivy on that section of road or that section of the trail. So through the CAO, Mr. CAO, if you want to discuss that with the members of the Recreation Department and see if that's something that needs to be resolved. I think council would be interested to hear your comment on that. So, John, are you comfortable with talking to the Rec Department about that? He's nodding his head. Okay, we're going to go with that.
Yes, I am.
All right. Well, thank you. If there's any problem, if you need any direction from council, just get back to us and let us know. I appreciate that. And as always, I want to thank members of the public who send in questions and participate in public participation. I just want to remind you, of course, that there is a proper form to use on our website. It's quite easy to locate through the clearview.ca website, and it's best to use that form. That way it's recorded in a proper and official way. So thank you very much, public participation. All right, members of council, item number 5 is deputations and presentations. Michael Ryan from the Simcoe County Food Council is with us. I see his name on the screen, and I believe he's just joined us. Hello, Michael.
How are you?
I'm well. Welcome to our Clearview Township Council. Nice to have you.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Great. So you're going to do a presentation for us, and then perhaps council may have some questions for you. Is that correct?
Yep. Is the clerk able to share the presentation?
For sure. I'll pass the chair of the meeting over to you at this time. And if you have any questions, please ask again. It's all yours, Michael.
Thanks. And thanks everyone for having the opportunity and listening to me speak tonight. The Simcoe County Food Council is a new organization because COVID is a great time to start a new initiative. If you go to the next slide, you'll see that The evolution of the Food Council has a long history inside Simcoe County. With the Simcoe County Food and Agricultural Charter in 2013, there was a ministerial roundtable that the Poverty Reduction Task Force was involved with. And through those discussions and those actors came a local food security forum put on by the county, where it was seen that household food insecurity and food policy was something that needed further development and was a concern to people across the county. A request for proposal went out, and ecoeconomics was retained by the county to create what is called the Simcoe County Food Security Framework, which was endorsed by County Council in 2019 and is quite a mouthful with not a good acronym. But out of that framework comes the idea of a food council to coordinate and implement the framework across the county. If you go to the next slide, please. Inside the framework, it's a blueprint for further awareness and coordination and development of approaches designed to enhance food security for residents in the County of Simcoe. It's very much meant to help prevent duplication, to create a forum and bring people together that are working in similar spaces. We'll see later it refer to a constellation model. So the working tables that are working towards the goals will be the boots on the ground, connecting people that are working in the same area so that if there's successes in North Simcoe, how do we replicate them in South, East, West Simcoe without someone duplicating and having to redo all that basic legwork. Next slide, please. And out of that is going to come some policy initiatives or policy challenges that different people that are working in these working tables are going to run across, so that policy will flow up from the working tables, and the Food Council can advocate county or outside the county on those behalves to help implement the framework, as well as providing an opportunity for those working tables and those groups to work together. Next slide, please. So the vision is a sustainable, equitable, and secure local food system in Simcoe County, interconnected, where safe, sufficient, nutritious, culturally appropriate food is financially and physically accessible to everyone in dignified means, and where people are actively working towards realizing a more food secure Simcoe County. Next slide. So inside the framework, there are kind of 7 goals. So has to do with community food security and household food security. Insecurity, which are two very different things. The former has a bit more economic development lens and supporting agri-food, which we see in the later goals, but household food insecurity, its root cause is poverty or the lack of financial means to afford food. So we see that in the first few goals, where we see raising awareness and understanding about household food insecurity in Simcoe County, working with the health unit on the No Money for Food is Senseless campaign and promoting that. Working with PRTG to find common goals, supporting income and housing solutions to reduce household food insecurity. Number 3 is to increase physical access to enough nutritious food for all. Number 4 is to improve community food literacy. Number 5 is to improve community food infrastructure and policy to support local agri-food sector and ensure a sustainable local food system in Simcoe County. Number 6 is to foster Simcoe County's food traditions and Indigenous food knowledge and culture. And number 7 is to support a countywide collaboration towards a food secure Simcoe County. Next slide. So out of these 7 goals have come currently 6 working tables. The one that has been in existence the longest is the food banks of Simcoe County. We meet monthly with around 20 food banks across the county. It was initiated by inside the county and was taken over by the Food Council to run in October when we got off the ground. And it's been a really good place to bring people together, talk about how COVID has affected them, what challenges they're facing. And that was really the driver at the start and still is. But the other thing that has come out of that is that there are other challenges that food banks run into other than COVID, and giving a space and opportunity for people to sit down that are working in the same sphere. What are their successes, failures, challenges? And often we have 2 or 3 people in the room that have faced those challenges before, and we can connect and really develop better services for the people of Simcoe County. Number two is the food literacy and food programs. We've been meeting with the early on centers in Simcoe County, the 2 school boards, and really developing what kind of resources exist in the county for food literacy and food programs, and how do we leverage them so that we can get the maximize those assets in the county. Agriculture and local food systems is another working table. Equity, diversity, and inclusion. We'll see later in the stats that those vulnerable populations are very much more likely to suffer from household food insecurity. The community gardens of Simcoe County, which a member of Clearview has been attending those meetings, has been a really interesting discussion on community gardens governance, how they've dealt with COVID, and a lot of networking and support systems to help the community gardens do what they do. We sit as coordinators on the PRTG task force for Simcoe County, really working towards not trying to duplicate those efforts in Simcoe County that already exist to reduce household food insecurity or poverty. So how do we leverage those existing assets and complement them, and not doing something in parallel and not to the same degree? And then one of the things that all of these have in common, or anyone working in the food sphere, is sub-region food assessments and asset mapping. Every 5 years, every 3 years, there's a government grant that goes to someone inside Simcoe County to create a food asset map. And then it gathers dust as a PDF or sits on someone's shelf. So we're really trying to work and create a system where there is an up-to-date, reliable map of food assets across the county. In the food literacy and food programs, often if there's a community garden nearby or infrastructure that a school or someone else can use, that can save a lot of legwork of trying to develop that program internally. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. That is just kind of that constellation model and the working tables up and down illustration, but it's important in these conversations to distinguish between community food security, which is a condition where community residents have access to safe, culturally appropriate, and nutritionally adequate diet through a sustainable food system that maximizes community self-reliance and social justice. Whereas household food insecurity is that a household doesn't have the financial means to access food and can be influenced by cost of living, job security, social assistance rates, etc. So if we go to the next slide, we'll see some national stats that 1 in 8 households in Canada are household food insecure, 1 in 6 children. Single parent families are twice to 3 times as likely to suffer from household food insecurity. And those that identify as Black and Indigenous are a third of them also identify as household food insecure. If you look at the province, which is the next slide, you'll see that the stats are kind of similar. About 63% of the people that are household food insecure are relying on wages as their source of income. A single male on OW is spending 130% of what they're receiving on housing and transportation. So there's not much money left over for food. Next slide, please. And we see that the County of Simcoe is very similar to the national stats. 1 in 8 households in Simcoe County are household food insecure. Next slide. Next slide. So often household food insecurity, poverty, municipalities have a role to play, whether it be economic development and jobs, bringing jobs that are paying a living wage employer to your municipality to help support people being able to afford and not be household food insecure, affordable housing, but lots of small things like transportation to the county and municipalities control. And how do we make sure that when we're planning, we're not creating deserts where transportation isn't available for people to get from affordable housing to the jobs they need in order to be able to afford it. Next slide. So really our goal is that there's 15 members of the Food Council that from the start, and then myself and Courtney are the coordinators. That are trying to start to develop and implement the framework, the goals inside the framework the county has endorsed. So our goal here tonight is to raise awareness about the Food Council, the framework, and the work that we're doing and starting. And so some of the things that the municipality can do to support our work is to endorse the Simcoe County Food Security Framework, acknowledge that household food insecurity is a priority, and recognize that municipalities have a role to play through planning and economic development. Supporting existing food assets within your municipality, and anything that you can do to do that will help with that community food security piece, and identifying a point person to collaborate with the Simcoe County Food Council on future work. There's lots of municipalities that we have reached out to currently, but a point of our presentation here tonight is really just raising awareness that we exist. We are working towards implementing the framework. And if you have initiatives within your municipality that fit within those goals, we'd be more than happy and willing and enjoy working with you to help you implement them. And we may know other people that are doing similar things in other places and save some duplication in outlaying a project. Next slide. We have just listed some of the organizations and individuals that are on the Food Council, and some organizations that they represent. And respectful of time, I'd just like to say thank you for entertaining my presentation this evening, and thanks very much.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Michael. Good presentation. Shocking piece of information I picked out of that was the Ontario has 1.7 some million people that are impacted by food security questions, and I had no idea. That's quite a number to fathom when you really consider the population of Ontario and how that's real. So,
and I think it's important to. There's a stigma attached. We see it at the food banks working table a lot. There's a stigma attached to household food insecurity or not being able to afford food, and we saw it definitely at the food banks working table when governments were more than willing to give financing or funding to food banks, but it was strings attached. Had to be spent before August, like a 4-month window. And what the common denominator from the food banks was that it was a year and a half before food banks saw a rise in usage after the crash in 2008. And the stigma attached of using a food bank, of asking for help when it comes to food security, people will burn through their savings, sell their car. It's a very last resort to reach out for help sometimes. And so that was just kind of an interesting stat too. And we've seen that this spring, that just because COVID had a massive impact on people that are easily household food insecure with the disruption in wages coming in, it still has taken a year and a half before we see that rise in usage or the real impact of the problem.
Just want to add one other comment too, right, Michael, is that the food banks obviously are run mostly by volunteers and volunteers from the community that want to come out and help, particularly here in our township in Clearview. We have a very, very dedicated group of volunteers that work, several days a week organizing it, as well as handling calls and requests. So they're to be acknowledged and recognized for their hard work helping our community too. So thank you for that. Members of council, do you have any questions to Michael regarding this? Yes, go ahead, Mr. Patterson, Tom Patterson.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Largely support what you're doing and hopefully at the municipal level, we have some kind of outreach to, and Doug just mentioned it, our formal volunteer groups like the food bank. But one of the things we've learned during the pandemic is there's a number of ad hoc groups that have been formed, largely by volunteers that are in other organizations, so they know how to organize. I'm glad to see a list of individuals and organizations. Is there a program to give notice to people who might want to organize at a local level to help you? And the reason why I mention that is, again, the stigma. Oftentimes the local groups are better able to identify and talk to the group as opposed to the big organization.
Good question.
Through you, you definitely see that in our discussions with the early on centers. Many of them have emergency baby food pantries and baby supplies. They know who inside their program might be vulnerable that's not accessing help and helping to connect those people. This presentation today is part of our way of reaching out, and hopefully we'll run into or raise awareness with people that have not heard of us before. Those people that have joined the Food Council and organizations have identified other organizations that they have on their periphery that probably would benefit, or we would benefit from going to them and asking for their support and help. But definitely anything that you can do to help connect us to them or them to us is greatly appreciated.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Any other members of council who have any questions to Michael? Please go ahead, Councillor McKechnie.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just wondering, Your Worship, maybe you can answer this question on behalf of staff. Do we, as a township, do we have any sort of a handle on the prevalence of household food insecurity and poverty in Clearview Township at all? Have we studied that as a township?
I'm going to draw a little bit of a blank on that, Councillor. I don't know if we've specifically studied that. I would suggest that it's probably part of census taking information that might be available through the federal government programs, but through the CAO, John, I'm not sure if we have anything that's available for specifically Clearview.
I've not come across anything that we've done, but you would take a look at the average household incomes, and there could be a correlation there, depending on your community. And the difficulty that some families have may be, being able to operate their household in a vehicle, being able to put food on the table, as Michael suggested. I think there's a prevalence in most of the communities. And I think if I read it correctly, it was around 56% for this area, Michael, was that correct?
I'd have to go back and look at my presentation.
Fair enough.
But another place to go for those kind of statistics is the health unit too. Christine Bushy sits on the board and is head of the chronic disease prevention. So people that are household food insecure have 131% cost on the public healthcare system if you're household food insecure as opposed to the general population. And so it's definitely something that the health unit's concerned about as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it's that silent thing. A lot of people that are experiencing that aren't going to say anything. And there's a lot of pride, and it's difficult for people if they have to go to a food bank. And it'd be nice if we could find ways to help with that process.
Actually, speaking of the food bank, Councillor McKechnie, I'm confident that if you contacted Pam at the food bank, you'd probably be able to have a confidential conversation with her and get an understanding of the type of clients and the number of clients that are from our community. I know when the pandemic first struck us, my conversations with her were that she was quite surprised. Within about 2 months of the pandemic hitting us here, she was seeing a marked increase of members of people who are from our community accessing the services. So I don't imagine that they want to share any specific details, as the part of their role as volunteers and operating the food banks to maintain confidentiality, but I'm sure they can give you a better understanding if you have an opportunity to speak to them.
And well, if I may follow up, Your Worship. So all
Sure.
I'm doing, I'm just looking at the presentation here, and that's one of the suggestions in the presentation is that the municipality have a policy that we annually review the prevalence of household food insecurity and poverty in the area. So it doesn't look like we've been doing that up to this point. I don't know how easy it is to do it. I was just basically, I suppose we could talk to the food bank, but and get a handle on it from there. But anyway, okay, thank you very much.
Well, let's follow up on that point. Michael, would your advice be to a community like ours to try to get that information and make a genuine study on how we can bring that information forward, Michael?
Yeah, I think you can't manage what you don't measure, right? So if you aren't measuring the problem, you'll never know that it exists. And I think if the health unit would be a good place to start to try and put those stats together, and I'm sure that once COVID's over, they'd be more than willing to help you work towards that.
Okay.
That's good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good conversation. Anybody else with any questions or comments in regards to this? All right, I'm not seeing any, but I'll tell you what, thank you very much, Michael. It certainly opened my eyes there, a couple of those statistics, as well as a good conversation here. So thank you very much for participating.
I just thought of something in a follow-up to Councillor Patterson's question about other organizations other than food banks that are helping or wanting to help. Often transportation to the food bank or within times is sometimes. So we've seen a lot of organizations St. Vincent de Paul specifically is one that comes to mind, that when the food bank has somebody that needs their services but can't get transportation to it or vice versa, they step in, kind of volunteer to help as a delivery service so that access and transportation aren't an issue. So those are definitely some ways that, or connections that other organizations can help and support.
Good point. I appreciate that. And that's something we've struggled with actually as a township in regards to transportation, public transportation. Our transit system is pretty successful in and around the Stayner community, but our experiment into Creemore wasn't as successful. So you never know with transit, right? So thank you for that, Michael. And thank you for joining us. And I encourage you to please reach out to our staff if you have anything further you want to add. And we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you for all the work you're doing. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. We're going to move on then to item 5.2, which is Andrew Turnbull and my old friend Joy Fleury. Joy, I haven't seen you in a long time. It's just, there she is. How are you? I haven't seen you in a while. Oh, you're muted there.
Great.
There
How
you
are
go.
you?
Nice to see you again. Yeah, it's been a while. And Andrew, welcome. Nice to see you. You folks are always welcome to come and speak to us here. You're regarding Habitat for Humanity at South Georgian Bay, and we're very interested to hear about your project. So welcome to our Clearview Council meeting.
Well, thank you very much, your worship, members of council. We appreciate having the opportunity to speak to you today. And if I can, I'll get that presentation thrown up. And in the interest of time, I'll try to go through it relatively quickly.
No problem. I'll just hand it right over to you, and I'll be right here if you have any questions.
Very good. So yes. Anyway, let me just say the world is a very different place than it was when we came in front of you in December of 2017 to talk about our Quebec Street project. And I'll reflect on that a little bit more as we go along. But if I can, I'd like to just reflect on the outcome of that meeting and that agreement to partnership with us on the Quebec Street build. So if I can go to the next slide. So here we have the completed property on Quebec Street. I think it is perhaps the most attractive of the Habitat homes we've ever built. And we have two lovely families who are paying their property taxes, utilities, shopping in local stores, kids in local schools, and of course, most significantly, the trajectory of children's lives that have been changed for the better because of our partnership together in completing this home. So thank you again for that. If we can, I'll move to the next slide. Just touch on our vision. Our shared vision is a world where everyone has a decent place to live. And next slide. We bring communities together to help families build strength, stability, and independence through affordable home ownership. And the key word there is bringing communities together. We don't build these homes on our own. It takes a wide range of partnerships, and I'll touch on that a little bit more as we go along. Next. So if we look at how we work, I mean, the key things to understand here is that homeowners pay a mortgage tied to income. And I think this speaks in part to what the previous presenter was discussing. Renters these days find themselves paying an exorbitant amount, 60 to sometimes even 70, 75% of their take-home income on substandard rental accommodation. Setting a mortgage specifically tied to income, it allows for things such as dietary concerns, quality of food, extracurricular activities for children to take place. So we also depend on volunteer labor and donations, as well as, of course, our restore operations to help keep the costs of building down. Homeowners provide 500 hours of volunteer labor, and then, of course, pay an affordable. Next slide. The key point on this slide is really just that we don't put families into these homes and then just abandon them. It's an ongoing process. We mentor families to ensure that they have the skills to be good homeowners and good and frankly good community citizens as well. And I'll touch a little bit upon how the family selection process goes, because I think that's always of interest to people. The next slide. So one of the misbeliefs I think that exists out there is that getting a habitat home is like winning the lottery, and that's not the case at all. Habitat homeowners have already done a lot of things right. They've got a good track record of employment. They've managed their income to debt well, you know, and they're able to make affordable mortgage payments. So that's the specific niche on the kind of spectrum of the housing crisis that Habitat serves. So next slide. Again, I touched on this, but the majority of Habitat homeowners are people that we find in substandard rental accommodation. This situation, of course, has been exacerbated recently with the increasingly hot housing market in our area. A lot of landlords are being incentivized to sell and kind of cash in on the upside, and that's creating even tightening market for rental. And so what we find is that the families that are in the kind of the dregs of the rental market. Next slide. Again, those homeowner qualifications, they have to be willing to partner with the Habitat. That's one of the important parts of the partnership. That includes, of course, putting those volunteer hours in, either helping to build their own homes of others, or working in our restore. That helps to instill pride in home ownership and fosters connectedness with the community in which they live. Next slide. And again, that ability to make an affordable mortgage payments. We go through a lot of applications to find people that will be successful homeowners. There's no point in us putting someone into a Habitat home, making them a Habitat homeowner only for them to default. They need to be able to manage those mortgage payments, but at the same, like we experienced with COVID, we are there and able to adjust those mortgage payments accordingly should there be a temporary downturn in family income. And to the project at hand, and I'll go to the next slide. So 219 John Street, we purchased two pieces of property 2 years back. They're adjacent to each other, one on John Street, one on Christopher Street. This is an infill lot. So it's always exciting, I think, to develop a lot in town that has been sitting vacant for, I think, time immemorial. It's a modest, affordable home. It'll be a great family neighborhood. It's walking distance to all the services, and I think, frankly, it'll upgrade from a vacant lot to a very attractive but modest family home. It was a bit of a challenging. It's been a challenging time for us, as you can imagine. It's been challenging for nonprofit organizations. It's been challenging for for-profit organizations, and I would imagine it's been challenging for people responsible for running townships as well. For us, we did not build last year because we did not, with the closure of our restore, which is our primary source of funding, we were unable to be secure in our financial situation in order to build. It had been our intent when we purchased the John Street lot and the Christopher Street lot to seek rezoning so that we could build semi-detached homes and serve 4 families. But given the situation with water and our understanding that increasing density would not be something that would be possible, we altered our plans and switched to the schematic that you saw there, which is a kind of a raised side split. There's some water table issues on that lot as well. Every build we have is we face unique challenges. In this case, we're putting a full footprint basement under the bedroom wing, which will be raised, and then a crawl space under the living room kitchen space, so that the family will have the opportunity to enlarge the home as time and need demands, while at the same time having storage, but dealing with the water issues that are there. So we're very excited. We plan to be breaking ground for foundation very shortly. All our permitting is in. We're just waiting for the last of our grading plan to be submitted. And we are once again working with Royal Homes, who partner with us on building a really scaled down shell. It helps them, and they're able to provide us some very attractive pricing on that. So it would be our intent to be dropping the shell of the house on the foundation later this summer, and working into the fall and likely into the winter, finishing it from the inside. It's been challenging for us, of course, with COVID. We're not really being able to bring volunteers together in any great numbers, but things seem to be improving in that front, and I think that we will be able to return to our more typical model shortly. And so as you see the request we have, which is the request we've placed in front of you in the past, is to partner with us on this affordable housing initiative and defer or waive the Clearview portion of the development fees and the building permit costs. And the next slide, I think it just touches on the fact that all donations we receive, and we don't really consider this a donation, nor really a partnership, but any donations we receive or gifts in kind that we receive go directly to reducing the cost of building, and that allows us to move on and build the next house sooner. So our intention will be to build the single family home on 219 John Street, and then if all goes well, next year build on the adjacent lot on Christopher. And with that, I would again thank you for your time, and I would open the floor up to any questions that you might have.
All right, Mr. Turnbull, thank you very much for the great presentation, and also thank you for all the work that you're doing on behalf of Habitat for Humanity and the volunteers that you work with. Tremendous organization, and good job. Thank you for that. All right, members of council, any questions to Mr. Turnbull or Ms. Fleury, who's the executive director of this awesome organization? Anybody got any questions they'd like to ask? Yes, Councillor Lamers, go ahead, and then Councillor McKechnie.
Thank you, Bishop. I'm just wondering how long of a tie do you have to these people that move into these houses? Once they move in, are they tied there for so long, or what happens in 5 or 10 years?
Well, the homeowners are the registered. They're registered Untitled. Using the typical model, and without getting into too far off base, there are other affiliates across the country in other housing markets that are looking at different models. But the typical model, which we have used to this point and intend to use for this home, the homeowner is the registered title holder. However, the Habitat for Humanity is the mortgage holder, and we have the first right of refusal of repurchase, and their equity, because their down payment is really in labor, is very little in those early years. So there's mechanisms, if I think what you're getting at, that don't allow people to move in, take advantage of an upsurge in the market, flip it and generate money. Our typical Habitat homeowners are with us for the duration of that mortgage. We've had, I think of the 15 homes, we've had 2 that eventually they've sold because their housing situation changed. We have 1 that's currently looking at moving to a traditional mortgage because their situation has improved over time, which is the outcome, of course, we all desire. So now the percentage of income that we're taking, they could end up with more money on a monthly basis by going with a traditional bank mortgage. Does that answer your question? Joy might have some other comments there.
So our mortgages are structured in a way that encourages the families to think of these as their forever homes. And so we are in constant contact with our families throughout problems that they may encounter, and income changes and family structure changes. And as Andrew alluded to, the equity changes as well. So in those early years, if they were, I like to say, if they got their dream job and needed to move away, then they wouldn't necessarily get very much of that equity back because they haven't been in the home very long. But it is encouraged that they are there for 10, 15 and more years. And most of our families absolutely think of these as their forever homes, and they are wanting to be in the community that we're building. This is where they want to live. They want to live in Stayner.
All right, John?
Oh, that pretty well covers it. It's like they're tied in. It's a forever home unless their financials changes or they have to move away for a job. But no, that's good. Thank you.
Great stuff. Thank you, Councillor Neighbors. Councillor McKechnie, you're up next.
Thank you, Your Worship. So we have a request in front of us to waive our development charges, which I fully support. Just my question is, how successful have you been with the county and the school board in waiving those development charges? Are they supportive of Habitat for Humanity?
So I might jump in. So the county rebates all of our development charges that go to the county. So as soon as we produce a build permit, they rebate and refund to us all of the development charges from the county level.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the question. You're right. We're going to get to that discussion here in a minute. I just wondered if anybody on council has any questions to. Oh, Deputy Mayor Burton, go ahead, Barry.
I just wanted to comment, as you know, we have waived the development fees and other applications not to do with Habitat of Humanity, which is a great organization. I fully support what they're doing. But it's standard procedure for county to waive. If we waive development fees, the standard procedure for county to do the same.
Oh, thank you for that clarification. Anybody else with any questions or comments? Mr. Walker, Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Your Worship. To Andrew, you pretty well answered all my questions. Knowing that property is straight through to Christopher.
Right.
That was my first question: is did you buy both? Which you did. My second question was, are you planning to build on the second? Which you said, which you are. So that's good. Now the only other question I have is, a few years ago we had a build that we had some. I think I'm going to class it as some property issues externally.
Yes.
With the buyers.
Right.
Has there been something put in place now to deal with or to encourage the new owners to look after the land and keep it neat and as tidy as possible, especially with adjacent homes being in that condition?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm aware of the situation that you're referring to. And I think if you were to drive by the Quebec properties, you would see a marked improvement in care. We improved our practices around family selection over the course of the last number of years. And then the mentorship piece that I mentioned as well. So first of all, we're better. We've become better at making sure that we're getting the right family in the right home, and then we've also become better in our ongoing mentorship of those families to ensure that they have those skills to be a good homeowner that maintains not only the home but the property and understands the importance of being a citizen of the community and what that entails. So I think that we certainly take responsibility for, and we've taken some steps to try to rectify that situation. I hopefully it has improved somewhat over time, but we definitely have made strides in recent years in ensuring homeowners have respect of their neighbors.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Walker.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's a great program, and I commend the organization for what they do and how they and the process. I'm fully supportive. So congratulations, and looking forward to the build.
Well done.
Well, it'll be wonderful to eliminate a derelict lot right in the center of Stainer. And so it's a shame that it's taken this long, but I assure you there'll be two very nice homes there within a couple of years.
That's great news. Any other members of council with any questions or comments? I just want to acknowledge Councillor Leishman's joined us. Nice to see you tonight, Connie. Thank you for joining us. Any other members? Okay, I just have a couple of quick questions, comments. When you're involved in a build and you're asking us to defer our DC component of our building permit fees, et cetera, that does not take away from the responsibility to build the home to meet the building department requirements. And so I just want to be clear with the public that this home is built like any other excellent home in our community. It will be built to the proper standards, and it'll have regular inspections. So we're not in any way suggesting there's any less inspections or any leniency offered. It's a building that's going to be absolutely built according to code, and it'll be safe for both the members of the people that are in the home as well as our community in general. So I just want to put that out there to make sure people clearly understand that. Further, that it's being these homes are built by builders, home builders, and registered trades are involved in the construction of these homes. While they do use volunteers, it's not put together by volunteers. It is assembled underneath the supervision of trades, and that's really important to note. So thank you for that, and you've built a great reputation. I can tell you across the community, across South Georgian Bay, there's some really good examples of the great work you guys are doing. So keep up the good work, and I'm glad you're able to join us. If I can ask, please keep us informed. Joy, give us a call, let us know what's going on, how the project's moving ahead, and that way, your counselor here can help celebrate that in the community, okay?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for your presentation. I look forward to seeing more of you all summer and through the fall. So all the best.
Thank you.
The council, you can stay right there if you like, but I'm just gonna move on because we do have an item that has been moved up in our agenda thanks to our clerk's department. They've moved up FIN 020-2021. It's a DC building permit reduction request from Habitat for Humanity. So council, recommendation, be it resolved, the council of the Township of Clearview hereby one, approve a 100% decrease in the Clearview portion of the development charge fees. Yes, Deputy Mayor Burton.
Sorry, I wanted to make an amendment to that motion. So
let me finish reading it and we'll call it.
Okay, I didn't expect you to get me to speak until you finished reading it. Sorry. But
thank you. When I see the yellow card, I'm going to try to respond to my council as best I can. Hello, Councilor Kelly McDonald. Nice to see you joining us. Council, be it resolved, Council of the Township of Clearview hereby one, approve a 100% decrease in the Clearview portion of the development charges, fees only, for Habitat for Humanity South Georgian Bay for their single family home project located at 219 John Street, Stainer. And item two, approve that the DC reduction be funded from the tax stabilization reserve. Can I have a mover and seconder, and then we'll ask for an amendment. Mover and seconder on the file. Councilor Deneen, Councilor Broderick, Deneen and Broderick. Deputy Mayor Burton.
yes, thank you, Your Worship, and I appreciate your immediate attention when my card goes up, but thank you for that. I'd like to make an amendment. I'd like to change item number 1 to read, approve a 100% decrease in the Clearview portion of development charges, fees, and building fees. Because right now it says development charges only. I would like to include the building fees to be waived as well. That would be the permit fees.
Okay. That's what I was looking for. Can I, fair enough. I'll ask for a seconder on the motion. Is there a seconder who would like to support that? Councillor Leishman, good. Can I ask Kelly McDonald to review what that would mean if we were to add this to the motion? Kelly?
Thank you, Worship. Through your Worship to Deputy Mayor Burton. I'll actually have to take the report back and speak with the Chief Building Inspector. I understand that because the fees are tied through the building code, they have to do public meetings in order to do any kind of reductions in fees like this. And I'm honestly not sure whether or not something like that could also be funded from the tax stabilization reserve, or if it would have to go to public meeting first. So if you'd like to make that amendment, I'm more than happy to take it back and have a quick chat with Scott and bring it back to council.
Good advice. Can I go through the CAO? Mr. CAO, would you like to comment on that? I guess Scott is not on the call tonight, is he? I didn't see if he was here.
Yeah, by the sounds of what Kelly McDonald just expressed, I think we should hold off and just find out if we're permitted to do that. And if we are, we can bring it back to the next council.
Deputy Mayor Burton, is that comfortable to you then? Or Connie?
Yeah, I am comfortable because I would like to, unless we want to pass this, and then I do a separate motion. We could pass this tonight as it stands, then I'll put forth a separate motion that can be deferred to another meeting till we get a report from our finance people.
Tell you what, just as a recommendation, you could withdraw your amendment motion at this time. At the conclusion of this discussion or this item, you can ask for a motion to ask for a report from staff. How would that be?
That would be perfect, Your Worship.
All right, Councillor Leishman, you're comfortable with that seconding in that operation? Thank you. All right, so Madam Clerk will just withdraw the amendment. Any further discussion on the item as presented, unamended? Seeing none. Members of Council, I'm prepared to call the motion. All those in favor? And that carries unanimous. Thank you very much, Council. Deputy Mayor.
Yes, I'd like to put forth a motion to for Habitat Humanity for staff to come back with a report to deal with the process of reducing the building fees by 100%.
All right.
Madam Clerk, did you sort of get what the gist of that?
You got that?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Burton, through Mayor Measures to you. So what I got is the second motion that's on the table here is direct staff to bring a report back to council regarding 100% reduction of Clearview building permit fees.
Clarify for this project, the Habitat for Humanity Project 219 John Street.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, is there a seconder on that motion? Looking at you, Connie. Connie Leishman, the seconder. Any discussion on that motion? My only question may be to the CAO or the clerk or anybody who could answer, how long do you think that might take? Would we be able to get to that by August or maybe before?
I don't think it would be difficult to find out what the process is. If there is a process, it might take a public hearing.
Correct.
Yeah.
Madam Clerk, you're comfortable with that answer as well? Okay. All right, Council, then you got some information to consider. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Burton. Anything further on that question? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor? And that also carries unanimous. Thank you. All right, Habitators, good job. Nice to see you all, and good luck with the project, and thank you for joining us here at our meeting tonight.
Thank you. We look forward to having you out to the dedication where we can have a few years and let the homeowners get their keys.
Oh, for sure. You know, and to your point too, by the way, Mr. Turnbull, about, you know, it's an infill lot, and you're right. It has been a long time that hasn't been built on. So I think that speaks well for the community and how growth is happening in our community. But we have a lot of development happening in our community. We have a lot of new builds, new development lands being built, but it's certainly nice to see infill lots being activated in the community. So thank you for that. All right, guys, thank you for joining us for the meeting tonight. All right, Council, we're a few minutes away from a public meeting. So why don't we just go to item number 7, approval of the minutes of the council meeting. Recommendation be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby approve the minutes of the June 14 council meeting as presented. Can I have a mover and seconder? Mr. Broderick, Mr. Walker, any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And the minutes are carried. Item number 8 is business arising from the minutes. If there's any business arising from the minutes. Seeing none. Okay, Council, we have a few items in communications from the mayor. There is no closed session today, so we don't have any report there. Township of Rideau Lakes request for provincial funding regarding abandoned ceremonies. Ferte SIMCOE Pride has a proclamation. Town of Bradford, West Millenbury request to open for personal services and gyms. the NVCA monthly newsletter and notification from Enbridge Gas. Is there anybody like to pull anything on there other than we already have the Ferté Pride motion to bring forward? Mr. Patterson, go ahead. I'm sorry, I think you're muted there, Tom. There we go.
Okay, you just missed the best part. Just to bring you up to date in terms of what's happening as we move from the declaration of 229, which was the Conservation Act update, towards moving towards the transition to the new regulations. So we've had some good news in terms of the working relationship between MNRF, the ministry, and Conservation Ontario, and the municipalities. And so there's good working spirit, I sense, coming from those discussions. There's been some positive indications around what's in the core programs, mandatory. Those are the programs that determine the levy to each of the municipalities. And then there's as you recall, there's a number of activities that conservation authorities do in Ontario, largely because of their dedication to the environment, like education, and largely for fundraising to supplement their fees. And an actionable part of the regulation of the enactment of 229 is to sort that out. So the core programs, mandatory, that's what determines the levy, and those municipalities will expect to see come down the pipe. The non-core programs, discretionary programs, for example, recreation, which is a bit of surprise, using conservation lands for recreation, given the experience we've had through the pandemic, people finding peace and some kind of enjoyment at our open areas. It has not been determined yet, so it's part of the discussions. So the message from the MDCA staff and the board to both councils and municipalities and staff and the public is that please get your comments into the NVCA if you know them, through board members. I am one, so in Clearview you can certainly call me and I'll pass in your comments, both constructive and critical and supportive and positive in terms of what you want to see going forward. But programs like the education program, the events program, the bank stabilization programs, environmental maintenance and that sort of thing, stream programs like we've done on special funding from in Sunnydale there. Those are in open discussions, and they will be handled through MOUs, memorandums of understandings. So not across all the municipalities, but those that want to participate. And of course, depending on the participation, is the funds. So one of the things that we were really encouraged at the NVCA board table is that the province has endorsed an integrated watershed management strategy across the watersheds. And so we're very happy to hear that. So as I said, public, get your comments to NVCA, to myself as a board member, and municipalities. If you want more information on this, we would be, the staff would be more than happy to come and participate in the meeting. About half of the municipalities have taken advantage of that. So we can do that. And we know that this will go on for a couple of months still, but till the end of December. That's an important date. That's the input. Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Councillor Patterson. I look forward to that. I look forward to establishing that MOU, memorandum of understanding, between the township and the NVCA, and also working through some of the other challenges, particularly with the advisory boards, or whether we're going to even have that. And there's other questions about the NVCA that need to be addressed. So thank you for that. Please keep us all up to date on your activity there as our representative. So thank you for that. Any other members with anything else on the list of items from communications from the mayor? All right, members of council, I'm going to read the motion. We have a motion here, 9.3, regards to Ferté SIMCOE Pride. So the recommendation is, be it resolved, the Council of the Township Clearview hereby support the request for proclamation from Ferté SIMCOE Pride for July 26th to August the 8th, 2021, and that the rainbow and trans flags be raised in celebration of diversity to raise awareness and promote equality on July 26th at 12 noon. So, Can I have a mover and seconder on that motion? Councillor Lamers, Councillor Broderick, thank you. Any discussion on the motion? I'll bring one quick comment. I had a conversation with Colin, who is the executive director, and advised him that we have a single flagpole available. And so the question on the motion was to have the rainbow flag and the trans flag. While we can have both flags there, we can only fly one flag. So Colin agreed. Very likely the rainbow flag is going to be the flag that will be chosen to be raised at that date. Nevertheless, that was my conversation with him. It was very positive to hear from him. Any other members of council? Seeing none, I'm going to call the motion. All those in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you very much. And then there's one more motion, then I'm going to get to the public meeting. And that is, be it resolved, Council of the Township of Clearview hereby one, receive the communications from the mayor for information. Can I have a mover and seconder? Mr. McKechnie, Councillor Deneen, hearing the motion, all those in favor? Very good, that carries. All right, Madam Clerk, we're coming over to you because we are going back on our agenda to item number 6, which is our public meeting. So council, we have a public meeting and our clerk, Ms. Helmke, is going to lead us off, but I have a script to read as this is a public meeting. All right, we will now initiate the public meeting portion of tonight's agenda as it relates to the council composition and ward boundary review. Although there is no legislative requirement to hold a public meeting when a municipality is considering to divide or redivide the township into wards or to dissolve existing wards, public engagement is an integral part of this process, providing residents the opportunity to share their thoughts on council composition and the electoral process in an open setting. As identified in the public meeting notice, members of the public were invited to participate in tonight's meeting by either providing written comments or making an oral statement virtually during this meeting. The public meeting will first involve a brief presentation by our clerk on the 2 preferred options being considered by council. Option number 1, a 5-ward structure resulting in 7-member council, 5 councillors, a deputy mayor, and a mayor. Option number 2 is to maintain the current ward structure, a 9-member council, 7 councillors, a deputy mayor, and a mayor. After the presentation, the clerk will then provide a brief explanation of the written comments received, and then allow for members of the public who have registered to provide their oral statements the opportunity to do so. Then an opportunity will be given for questions from members of council. And Madam Clerk, I can call upon you to make your presentation, and then we will call upon the members of the public for written statements. So, Madam Clerk, I leave you with the floor. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Measures. If I could ask Kayla to bring up the presentation for me. Thank you. So good evening, Mayor Measures and members of council. As was outlined, I am providing a presentation tonight on Clearview's council composition and ward boundary review. This presentation is intended to provide more detailed information on the 2 preferred options and items to consider when looking at boundary realignments to achieve effective and equitable representation. Next slide, please. To begin, I would like to give a brief overview of how this ward boundary and council composition review started and where we're at in the process. So Clearview's ward boundaries were last reviewed in 2013. Prior to the next municipal election in 2022, council chose to review Clearview's ward boundaries in relation to the previous study prepared by Watson and Associates and Dr. Robert Williams, dated September 20th, 2013. An integral part of this process is public engagement, as Mayor Measures said, and giving residents the opportunity to share their thoughts on council composition and the electoral process. It's important to note that the electoral review report prepared by Watson and Associates addressed population and electoral growth trends not only for the 2014 election, but for the 2018 and 2022 elections. They utilized their household formation model to forecast trends for the 2013 to the 2022 period, with assistance from the planning department regarding housing supply opportunities and future growth. In later slides, we will review the growth trends in relation to each of the 2 options being highlighted during this public meeting. And this is why the options provided within this report can still be utilized today and have formed the basis of this review. Next slide, please. In December 2020, Council was presented with a report proposing that the review consists of 4 different options for Council's consideration, These options are highlighted in the slide from A to D. So to move forward at Council's direction, a survey was issued exploring the public's interest in a ward or an at-large system and council composition. The following were options that were proposed in the survey. Option A was a 5-ward option, 7-member council, 5 councillors, a deputy mayor, and a mayor, and that's one of the options it's on for tonight. Option B was 5 members elected at large, a 5-member council. You had 3 councillors, a deputy mayor, and a mayor. Option C was 7 members elected at large, 7-member council, 5 councillors, deputy mayor, and a mayor. And option D was maintaining the current ward system, so a 9-member council, 7 councillors, deputy mayor, mayor, and that's the second option for tonight. Some survey highlights. So over 300 people participated in this survey. Ward 5 had the most respondents. 50% of respondents say that they were satisfied with the current council composition, and over 76% of respondents prefer the ward system. And there was a 3-vote difference between keeping the current composition or reducing the size of council to 7. Staff within the clerk's department thought of creative ways to engage the public about the ward boundary review. They focused largely on virtual content, as this is the main preference for the public to receive information, and it worked well to navigate through the various health restrictions due to COVID-19. The ward boundary review video is a perfect example of this, and to date, it has been viewed almost 500 times on YouTube. Next slide, please. So from the survey, results and council report that was presented at the March 22nd, 2021 meeting, staff were directed to proceed forward with a public meeting on the following 2 options. So option 1, a 5-ward structure, 7-member council. Option 2, maintain the current ward structure with a 9-member council. These 2 options represent the preference of the public who participated in the survey. And as can be seen from the 2 preferred options, an at-large system that was presented during the survey was not favored. So in the next few slides, I will review the 2 options in more detail. Next slide, please. So option 1, this is the 5-ward structure. So the 5-ward structure option was originally provided during the 2013 review by Watsons and was identified as option 5A. As outlined in the council report back in December, there was another option for a 5-ward structure presented by Watsons and identified as option 5B. This was not considered during the review due to current growth trends and developments, which made the population fluctuation across the wards too great. To understand the proposed 5-ward structure a bit better, I've highlighted what would change from the current ward boundaries to this one. Full disclaimer though, this is my review and comparison of the 2 ward maps. This has not been provided in the Watson report. I'm outlining this to give a base of reference and to hopefully provide a visual of how boundaries could potentially be redivided if the decision was made to move away from the current structure. I think it's probably best we move to the next slide, Kayla, just so we can bring up the map and I'll review. So what would change? So proposed Ward 1 would take some area to the south, which is Duntroon, that is currently seen in Ward 2. Proposed Ward 2 would then take in all the area that is currently seen in Ward 5, which is Creemore. Proposed Ward 3 would increase geographically and take a portion of the northeast corner of the township currently seen in Ward 6. Proposed Ward 4 would increase geographically going in the direction of both east and west. And proposed Ward 5 would encompass all the area currently seen in Ward 7, including the portion currently seen in Ward 6 up to Sunnydale Corners. So essentially, to reduce this ward size from 7 to 5, Wards 5 and 6 would be amalgamated with the bordering wards. Next slide, please. So when looking at redividing wards and the current and future population trends, it's important to look at those. The Township's Director of Community Services provided an update to the population forecast for the 5-ward option. This was also included in the December 2020 Council report. As outlined further in this presentation, optimal size for a standard ward is important. This is derived from dividing the estimated total population of the municipality by the number of wards. For example, using the forecast for 2020 contained in this slide, the optimal ward size would be 3,388 residents. The tolerable limit for the optimal size is a variance of 25%, meaning it's not best practice to have a ward population greater or less than the 25% of the optimal size. So for 2022, all wards are well within the acceptable variance, and moving to 2026 and 2030, all wards are still within the acceptable limit, but they are getting closer to that next threshold. Next slide, please. Now we move on to option 2, which is the 7-ward structure, 9-member council. So since amalgamation in 1994, Clearview Township has consisted of 7 wards. These wards were reconfigured during the 2013 ward boundary review to meet the expectations set out in the guiding principles of the Watson report, specifically equality of representation and population trends. As amended, option 7A from the review was adopted under bylaw 13-64 as the new ward boundaries. This amended version was based on requested modifications made at the October 7, 2013 council meeting. And just for reference, a small amendment was also made to the boundaries prior to the bylaw passing. I believe it was Riverside Drive was moved from Ward 2 into Ward 5. Next slide, please. So this is the map of the current ward structure that has been in place for both the 2014 and 2018 elections. So these are the boundaries that we've known well for the last 8 years. Next slide, please. A population forecast by ward was provided within the original Watson's report from 2013 and was subsequently amended with Watson's memo dated October 6, 2013. And this is the amended version that we've included in the slide. And this was based on the preferences from council decided upon at the October 7th council meeting back in 2013. As was analyzed with the 5-ward option earlier, the optimal size is shown within the chart under average. Variances are shown that relate back to the tolerable limit of 25% over or under. It's important to note that the population for Ward 2 within these estimates decreased minimally, and the population for Ward 5 increased minimally. This is because council at its October 21st meeting before they passed the bylaw made that amendment moving Riverside Drive into Ward 5. These population forecasts were provided prior to that meeting. However, this was just a minor impact, meaning the forecast still provide a good snapshot of the variances between existing wards. Next slide, please. So when reviewing the ward boundaries, it's important to consider all the guiding principles to achieve an effective and equitable system of representation. I've discussed the representation by population when looking at the optimal sizes of the 2 different ward structures being proposed. But I also take time to outline each of the 6 guiding principles contained in the Watson report. It's these principles together that have been used to determine each ward structures for effective representation. So the first one is population and quality of representation. So this is the degree of variation that is acceptable when you take into account the geography of the area. So as discussed, best practice is to have a variation within 25% of the over or above the optimal size. Number 2 is population trends. So your review should look into future population trends because it's not practical to change or realign your wards each election. As you can understand, the last thing you want to do is confuse voters by changing which ward they're in every 4 years. So you need to accommodate and balance future increases. So the rule of thumb is at least 2 elections at minimum. Number 3 is a means of communication and accessibility. So you want to look at the man-made features that shape the patterns of life in Clearview. So you want to consider roads, schools, retail clusters, recreational facilities, and consideration should be made of how people move about the township. Number 4 is your geographic features. So you need to take into consideration the various natural features in the township and recognize how the ward design can work with these features. So the one natural feature and the only one that was contained in the Watson report was a Niagara escarpment. And currently under this ward structure, a majority of it is contained in Ward 1. Number 5 is community or diversity of interests. So you need to recognize settlement patterns, traditional neighborhoods, and community groupings. So the theory and practice is that political representation in Canada is built upon the principle of representation by community. So there are 2 perspectives with this notion. So what is divided by ward boundaries and what is joined together? So the premise is that representation will primarily reflect some of these similarities. So for example, pre-amalgamation settlements. And lastly, number 6 is effective representation. So this comes from the Supreme Court of Canada decision in the Carter case. So the purpose of the right to vote is enshrined in Section 3 of the Charter, but it's not a quality of voting pattern, but the right to effective representation. So effective representation is not about the voter parity, because that's really impossible, but it's about taking into account the different factors, including geography, community, history, community interests, etc. So everything else is contained in the previous guiding principles. So looking at the 5-ward structure in relation to the guiding principles, Watson and Associates reported that it fully meets the expectations for the parity-related principles, which is representation by population and population trends. But it's not entirely successful within the other principles. This is because the population concentration is in Stayner, plus there's other 3 main settlement areas, which requires that all the 5 wards be built around the urban settlement areas and the rural population be divided in terms of its relationship to these settlements. And then looking at the current 7-ward structure, it was identified in 2013 that there were several positive attributes of this option in relation to each of the principles. The population of most of the wards is within the range of variation, but not all. Ward 6 is definitely without that 25%. However, the boundaries are clear, communities of interest are respected, and all wards are coherent units of representation. Next slide, please. So in conjunction with the guiding principle, there's other considerations to take into account. So when you're developing or reconfiguring wards, you also can think of the following. So are the proposed wards plausible as a means to provide effective representation? Are they drawn in such a way that representatives can readily play the role that's expected of them? And does the design offer effective and fair representation conducive to good government? As I have outlined in the previous slides, a key component of the 2013 review was representation by population and the accommodation for future growth. This is the consideration of optimal size, as I've been saying, and the tolerable limit, which has been analyzed for each of the 2 options being proposed. Optimal size and tolerable limits is based on best practice and is in line with the Electoral Boundaries Readjustment Act that requires provincial boundary commissioners to stay within the variance of 25%. Next slide, please. So one of the factors leading in Clearview's current council composition and ward boundary review was that the county of SIMCOE at an upper tier level and other member municipalities at a lower tier level were taking a look at their own council compositions and governing models. For the county, this began through the province's regional review, which was subsequently disbanded. However, it's always good practice to review current structures and identify if there's any room for improvement. This chart outlines municipalities in Simcoe County who have a ward system and the number of wards in relation to their population. This is being provided as a reference, and it gives a good snapshot of what the trend seems to be for population size and number of wards. It appears that a 5-ward structure is preferred, and more so a 7-member council is preferred when you look at the composition of the other municipalities. You will notice that only 3 municipalities that have 7 or more wards have populations over 35,000. I'd also like to just note that a summary chart may change, as I know that some of these municipalities are currently completing their own ward boundary reviews, and most notably that's Ramera and Oro-Medonte. Next slide, please. So at a high level, these are the next steps after tonight's public meeting. So an options report will be provided to council at the July 12th meeting for the 2 selections outlined during this public session. If council chooses to remain with the current ward structure, 9-member council, no changes need to be made as we move into the 2022 election. If council chooses to adopt the 5-ward structure, so a 7-member council, a bylaw will be presented to council for the boundary realignments. Once the bylaw is passed, the public has 45 days to file a notice of appeal with the municipality, which would be heard at LPAT. If no appeals have been received, the new boundary realignments will be provided to MPAC by January 1st, 2022, and the new 5-ward structure will be in place for the 2022 election. It should be noted that if an appeal is filed and it goes to an LPAT hearing, all appeals need to be heard and a decision made for the realignments before that January 1st deadline as well. So this completes my presentation on the council composition and ward boundary review. As outlined through this entire process, public engagement is integral. We've had 4 public written comments submitted to the clerk's department. These written comments have also been included on the council agenda, but I will take the time to review them now. I just want to make note that no members of the public have registered to make oral statements tonight. So it'll just be the 4 written comments. I'm going to start here. Bear with me. Our first public comment is from Robert Charlton, and he wrote, "I'm writing to support the option to reduce the number of wards to 5. The adoption of a 5-ward system would put an additional burden of work on fewer councillors as members of various committees and third-party organizations. However, the workload distribution is being carried by councillors in 22 other communities of similar size and often by fewer councillors. We would appear to have one of the lowest ratios of residents to councillors in a group of similar municipalities. Reducing the number of councillors from 7 to 5 would increase the representation ratio from 1,962 to 1 to about 2,750 to 1. The average ratio for the 23 communities is about 3,570 to 1. So we would not even be higher than the average with 5 councillors. The reduction would indicate a cost savings of over $42,000 annually and more going forward as wages increase for councillors. Fewer councillors should also see a reduction of the time spent at council meetings, since fewer people would be involved in debates and there would be fewer ward reports. I favor the adoption of the Ward 5A3 map. The proposal for Stannard to be included in the single ward, which was 5B, would require 2 councillors for that ward, and regardless of the population representation, I believe that the optics of that could be seen by voters in other wards as unfair. Despite the lack of candidates coming forward for recent elections, something the at-large system is supposed to help correct, I don't support an at-large system. It is possible that its heavy weighting of potential candidates may come from areas of denser population. Since some of those areas would also have more voters, it would be more likely to result in a council that was heavily weighted in favor of that area, which would not necessarily be in the best interest of the other areas or the township. With the anticipated growth of Stannard, this could be seen as increasing the threat to balanced representation of the rest of the township. I've had concerns expressed with at-large voting. A special interest group could build a large number of single-issue candidates that could get elected to council, resulting in a less populous area controlling council. Personally, I don't see this as being as big of a threat to the well-being of all voters, provided sufficient candidates come forward from the other areas. Nevertheless, it is possible and would be much less likely under a ward system. The next public submission is from Jean Brownfield. And she writes, I wish to voice my support for the 5-ward restructuring of Clearview Council. Not surprisingly, it seems that the option of an at-large system has already been struck down by council. For far too many years, several councillors have held their positions by acclamation, totally unacceptable in what we claim is a democratic system. An at-large representation would have seen elected individuals who could act on the best interests of the entire township. A small township this size is grossly overrepresented with the existing system. So at least going to a 5-ward would be a step in the right direction. The next public submission is from Keith Carter, and he writes, I support the option 1, the 7-member council. Simply put, a streamlined smaller council is more efficient council. For the population and area involved in a smaller council truly does make sense, as some councillors have a very small area and density and could be easily covered by the remaining council members. Yes, I realize it will mean an area does not have personal representation, but I have no doubt the councillor covering will do a fine job. There will also be a small cost saving, but any saving is a plus. The present size of council has never made sense to me. And the last submission is from CARA, the Creemore Area Residents Association, and it was submitted on behalf of their president and secretary, Greg Young and Valerie Dyer. And they write, as council members know, the Creemore Area Residents Association is an advocacy organization that acts on issues of vital importance to the local community. CARA has over 200 members in Clearview and adjacent townships. CARA is pleased that Clearview has decided to keep the ward structure, which allows for geographic representation. CARA's position is that council should adopt option 1, a 5-ward structure, 7-member council. So you have 5 councillors, a mayor, and a deputy mayor. In 2020, following a thorough review and public participation, your consultants concluded that the overriding principle for testing the appropriate electoral system is effective representation, and that effective representation often cannot be achieved without taking into account countervailing factors, such as geography, community history, community interest, and minority representation. CARA submits that a 7-member council would provide effective representation for all Clearview residents. It is hard to see the need for or to justify the cost of continuing with a 9-person council to govern only approximately 16,000 residents. By way of comparison, Caledon Council is presently considering a 5-ward or 6-ward system, with each ward having an average population in 2021 of 15,000, 5 wards, or 12,575 for 6 wards. In Council's December 14, 2020 report, Mayor Burton forecasted that in the 2 5-ward alternatives proposed by Clearview's consultants in 2013, the 2020 population ranged from 1,220 to 3,783 per ward. Such an increase in constituents per ward would not impose an onerous amount of work on any councillor. CARA respectfully requests that Council adopt option 1, the 7-member council. That concludes the public submissions that the Clerk's Department has received, and I'm open to taking any questions from Council.
First of all, thank you very much for your work on this, Clerk Helmke, and the staff of the Clerk's Department. I know have contributed, as well as members from the Planning and Building Department have also contributed. So I appreciate the work that you've done to put this together. Members of Council, again, this is a public meeting portion. So if you have any questions to the Clerk about her presentation, now is the time to ask about her presentation. Yes, Councillor Patterson.
Just a quick one, if Sasha would care to comment. This was prompted in some part by the province and the regional government review, but it also was on the minds of this council around the same time. And so we're moving ahead of what the county is doing right now, which I think bodes well for the council, this council. It may be interesting to see what happens if they make a change before we have 2 elections, let's say, but I think it's the right move. Would you comment on also the fact that while we're doing this ward rebalancing, we're also looking at the way we meet, committees of the whole and that sort of thing, which also add a dimension in terms of efficiency in the way we do business. And while it's a side issue, it might be of interest to the public.
Thank you, Councillor. Ms. Clerk, you got any comment on that work?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Measures. Through you to Councillor Patterson, that's correct. So my first job on my list when I started with Clearview was to complete the ward boundary review, just so that we were meeting our timelines if there was an appeal. And then my second goal is to complete the procedural bylaw review, which would incorporate possibly a committee of a whole structure, which would be a change from our regular council meeting structure. So you're correct, that is the next phase in kind of this step.
Councillor Patterson?
Well, I don't want to go belabor it. It's just a different way of council interworking, and where we would have one meeting of the committee of the whole and basically look at recommendations that are coming to us, let's say in draft form. And then there's a gap between a regular meeting and the committee of the whole meeting, where there's a greater public consultation available to us. And the committees would allow better communication, which has always been a difficulty. So I've never seen the difficulty based on communicating in the public based on the number of councillors, just a matter of the outreach to the public. So we're trying on the other aspect too, to make our meetings more efficient is the point I'm hoping that the committee of the whole helps do.
Great, thank you. Members of council, any other questions to the clerk about her presentation? Yes, Councillor McKechnie.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Sasha. First of all, I'm not going to comment on whether 5-ward or 7-ward. That will be for another day. But something that's always sort of bothered me is, I look at Stayner, and we have the boundary going right down the main street of Stayner. And maybe Robert or John could comment on this, but I'm just sort of wondering, down the road, Sasha, is it possible to amalgamate wards 3 and 4 but still have 2 councillors, so that now, like, the councillors aren't responsible for half of Stayner and not the other half? I'm thinking that if have the councillors responsible for all of Stayner, but you would still have 2 councillors there, but they would be responsible for all of Stayner. So down the road in the future, and certainly probably not in this term, it'll be in another term, is it possible to amalgamate one ward like that and have 2 councillors for that one particular ward and then just 1 councillor for the other wards?
Good question. Clerk Countke?
Yes, through your worship to Councillor McKechnie, that type of structure has been seen in other municipalities. I believe the Penetanguishene actually has that structure, but that's something that the next consultant for the next reviews, we could include in the terms of reference of entertaining that idea of having a ward amalgamation there and then having two council members for representation. But I have seen it done in other municipalities.
Okay, thank you. I mean, like I say, I'm not concerned about this during this term of council. That might be something to look at either next term or even the term after that. But, and I'd be, I'd also want to get some input from the 2, from Robert and John on that, because it may work well for them right now, but I'm just sort of thinking that they may also feel a little bit flustered sometimes or frustrated that they can't deal with something on the other side of the street, of the main street. So anyway, thank you very much.
All right. I see Councillor Broderick and then Councillor Walker. So perhaps both gentlemen could either respond to Councillor McKechnie just for the conversation, or do you have a comment there, John? Go ahead, Mr. Broderick.
Thank you, Your Worship. In effect, we really have that now. All councillors really are responsible for the entire municipality first, and both, well, in reality, over the last few years, both Councillor Walker and myself have responded to various calls from both sides of the highway. We really don't let that restrict us at all. Personally, I just don't see it as a problem.
Comment. Thank you. Councillor Walker?
Yes, Your Worship. I was going to make that same comment. Over the years, I know Stayner is split, but Councillor Broderick and myself have answered various emails and have copied each other in various emails so the other's aware of what is taking place. Getting together sometimes to put an answer together for the request, talking with staff. So though it looks like it might be awkward, it may be awkward if you get the wrong councillors there that don't communicate with one another. But presently, the system, to my knowledge, is a good system and works well. Councillor Broderick and I work well together and have, I said, communicated the various times on other things. So I think the system is okay at this present time, but it may be something that down the road that might want to be looked at if growth moves forward and carries on.
Thank you. Great.
Thank you very much, Councillor McKechnie, for bringing that conversation forward. Any other members of council, questions to the clerk in regards to this process? Okay, Madam Clerk, I'd just like to clarify one of the last things that was in your presentation was that you'll be bringing a report forward to council from this discussion, as well as comments you've received from the public, and that'll bring you an opportunity to present that information to council, and then council will have the opportunity to make a decision on this question. Is that correct?
Thank you, Mayor Measures. That is correct. So it will be an options report presented to council. So it'll be the 2 options that were outlined in tonight's public meeting. And then I'll just be reiterating the points that I made at tonight's public meeting and bringing back the summary provided in the Watson report of each of the 2 options. So yes, we'll be looking for council to make a decision on July 12th, and then we can proceed forward with drafting the bylaw for approval at the next future meetings. So it may not be July 26th, it may be the August meeting.
Right. And that's given that there is any changes or not. If there was no changes, then there was no need to change any sort of bylaw. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Oh, Tom, did you flash your card there? Do you have another question?
Oh, just a reminder, I think we're open to still having comments come in from the public.
Sure.
I just wonder, again, to Sasha, when we, on the 12th. It's not a public meeting per se. It'll be a decision that we can make a decision on. Are we taking written comments as we normally do with public participation?
Through you, Mayor Measures, to Councillor Patterson. At this point, the reason why we put the decision, the actual report to July 12th is allow the public extra time to engage with their ward council or even their mayor and deputy mayor of their preferred option. And those can go into consideration when you're making your decision at the July 12th meeting. We're not formally taking any public comments, but however, if we do receive any, we would forward them to council as a whole, so you can use them for consideration for that report.
So keep talking.
Good point. Thank you, Councillor Patterson. All right, members of council, I see nothing further, no other cards. Again, I just want to acknowledge and thank the clerk for finishing up on this project, and you're getting us closer to the finish line, and I appreciate that. And also certainly want to acknowledge the work of our previous clerk, Madam Fettis, who worked very diligently to bring this project forward to us as well. So it's certainly a group effort and team effort of your department. So thank you for all the effort you're making on that. Members of council, this concludes the public meeting with respect to the Clearview's Council Composition and Ward Boundary Review. We want to thank all those that have provided comments and oral statements for their interest in this review. A report will be presented to council at our July 12th council meeting, and a decision will be based on the two options outlined in tonight's discussion. So at this point then, that closes the public meeting portion of our council agenda. Thank you, everybody, and returns us to our regular agenda, which pushes us over to item number 10, which is county reports for information. Deputy Mayor Burton and I were having a brief chat about a couple of these items. So item number 1 is our county annual report card regarding the 10-year affordable housing and homeless prevention strategy. There's item 2 is the county investing in affordable housing in Bradford, West Gwillimbury announcement. And item 3 is the county awards for 2021 tourism, culture, and sports grants. Is there any questions from any members, or Deputy Mayor, would you have any comments for county reports? Oh, are you there, Deputy Mayor? Barry, looks like he went it for, oh, go ahead, Barry.
Okay, here we go. Now I'm back. I froze there for a minute. I think the reports speak for themselves. I would like to add, though, yes, the Bradford West Gwillimbury affordable housing project is going ahead, but also so is the one in Aurelia, which is over 100 units. So the county is investing money in Aurelia and Bradford West Gwillimbury, and constantly doing builds for affordable housing.
Well done, sir. I would like to add too that regarding affordable housing, I have yet again reached out to members of the staff of the County of SIMCOE asking for a workshop for this council. It's still sort of in the scheduling stages. If you don't mind, members of council, I've put it to the CAO and to our administrative assistant, Jen, to work with the clerk's department to try to find a date that's suitable. I had suggested an afternoon for about 2 hours, which I think might be appropriate. And so hopefully we'll be able to find a time, let's say in the next 4 weeks, maybe less, maybe sooner, I don't know. Well, it just depends on how that all plays out. But we are still trying to get something together there to get a bit of a workshop for this council, to have a discussion on that. All right, if there's nothing further on county reports. Yes, Deputy or Mr. McKechnie.
Thank you, Your Worship. Regarding the tourism, culture, and sport grant,
Yes.
I'm looking at the successful applicants. I don't know, there's 50 or 60 of them there. I only see one from Clearview, other than Clearview Township itself, which I assume is the municipality. But the only one that I see there is the Stainer Kinsman Club. I'm just wondering, are we getting the message out to the community groups about these grants?
Yeah, good point. Certainly, as you know, we have a very active events and community engagement group, in the work that's being done through the Recreation Department. So they're doing a great job for us, and congratulations to the Kinsman Club. Deputy Mayor Burton, go ahead.
Yes, also in response to Councillor McKechnie, I have made the announcement several times during my county reports that these grants were available and applications would be taken in. So I have done that, and I know so has, in doing that, staff have become aware, mayor has become aware, and I believe our recreation staff have become aware of those applications, the request for applications. So.
All right, Deputy Mayor, and through Mr. McKechnie, through the CAO, Mr. Ferguson, maybe we can have a conversation with communications to make sure that they publish some of that information through our website that might come from the county to perhaps help promote it a little bit more as well in the future. Is that suitable, Mr. Ferguson?
It certainly is, and we can even do a follow-up communication to remind them, because sometimes the community groups will only get the information at certain times, so you can never not communicate enough.
Fair enough. Inundated with emails, that's our life, isn't it, folks? Anyway, Councillor McKechnie, it's a good point, but I do want to acknowledge and congratulate all the people across SIMCOE County who received those awards. It's tourism and culture, is kind of a borderless activity, isn't it? So it's great for the whole area for sure. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
And I just want to thank Councillor McKechnie for mentioning the fact that Clearview is a recipient of a grant from that program.
For sure. All right, nothing further? All right, I'm going to go to the recommendation. Be it resolved, Council of the Township of Clearview hereby receive the county reports for information. Can I have a mover and seconder on that report? Deputy Mayor Burton, Councillor Walker. And I'll call the motion. All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you very much. All right, Council, item 11 is our ward reports. So starting at the top of my screen, I have Councillor Walker. You're up first, followed by Councillor Deneen and then McKechnie. Go ahead, Bob.
Thank you, Your Worship. Nothing really in ward reports other than nice to see us move forward to the next phase. I hope the weather cooperates for Thursday night for July the 1st and Stainer's opening night of the market. And today we were able to, as the government's announcement, we're able to book pretty well all the rest of my family's second shot, moved them up about a month. So the next 2 to 3 weeks, this family is going to be very busy, everybody getting number 2. So looking forward to all that. And other than that, that's it. And hopefully we have a good day on Thursday. You're muted, Your Worship.
I'm sorry. Thank you for that. Thank you, Councillor Walker. Phyllis Deneen, you're next, and then McKechnie, and then Broderick. Hi, Phyllis.
Hi there. Hello. Good evening to everyone. I just want to say congratulations to all our graduating students and welcome to summer. And during the upcoming holiday, I hope everyone stays safe and is able to pay tribute, remember, celebrate, or commemorate however they wish to. Reflect on the past, look forward to the future, and give your children a big hug. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Deneen. Councillor McKechnie is next, then Broderick, then Lamers.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's all been pretty quiet in Ward 2. As the Creemore BIA rep, though, last week there was a little bit of social media. There were a few comments regarding the outdoor patios in Creemore on the main street. A few of them are extending sort of out into the road. I know that Dan Perot with their Public Works Department has been dealing with or working with the restaurants in the BIA in that regard. And I believe tomorrow night we're having a meeting. There's a special meeting called of the BIA to further deal with that. I don't know exactly what's on the agenda, but it's a special meeting that's being called, and I think there will be some exciting news hopefully coming out of that meeting. Thank you.
Darn mute button there. Sorry about that. Okay, excellent. Thank you, Doug. Thanks for that. Councillor Broderick, then Lamers, and then Leishman. Go ahead, John Broderick.
Thank you, Your Worship. June the 15th, I attended a special Clearview Accessibility Committee meeting. Also on the 15th, the Clearview Library Board regular meeting. And the 16th, attended the Clearview Chamber of Commerce meeting. Councillor Walker already announced the opening of Farmers Market. I just wanted to bring everyone's attention to the ribbon cutting ceremony at 5 p.m. on July 1st. And also, I'm sure Councillor Leishman will expand on this as well, but we have reason to celebrate our public library. Our Clearview Library is the recipient of the Design Transformation Award for the Clearview Public Library Stainer Branch from the Ontario Library Association. And that is it for me. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor. I'm sure Connie will update us on that as well. Excellent, good news. Thank you. Councillor Lamers, and then Councillor Leishman, then Mr. Patterson. Go ahead, John.
Thank you, Worship. Now, it's been fairly slow. We had an evening hall board meeting on the 17th, Brentwood Hall Board on the 23rd. We're still looking for people for the Brentwood Hall Board. People are saying they're going to join, but they don't send in their submissions. So we're still trying to talk them into that. Evening's ready to get going with their hall renos, and just emails about four-wheelers going where they're not supposed to be going and complaints about that sort. But it's just the normal emails and watching lots of YouTube videos of all these meetings that are going on to try to keep up with the rest of the township. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lamers. I appreciate that. And congratulations to your granddaughter on her graduation. Saw that news. It's good news, John. That's good. Councillor Leishman's next, then Mr. Patterson, then the Deputy Mayor. Connie?
Thank you. And I do apologize for being late. Yeah, John told you mostly about the award from the library. It's called the Library Architectural and Design Transformation Award. I mean, let's face it, that was a huge transformation from one old library downtown to a brand new one out by the community center. And I'm so proud of it. And I will get in touch with Luke Boulain, who was our architect, and let him know. He's received a few awards about this library, so we should all be very proud of it. I'd also like to congratulate the graduates, one of which in Clearview, one of which is my granddaughter, of course. And yes, I don't want to tell you that's why I was late. I won't. The other thing is, I'll also like to say congratulations to all the Clearview graduates. We're so very proud of you, and you know, the best of everything for your next adventure. It's going to be a good one. And happy Canada Day, everyone. Celebrate the way you can. But yeah, I'm with Phyllis. Give your kids a hug. Thanks very much.
Congratulations on your granddaughter's graduation. Wonderful. That's great news. Thank you, Connie. Councillor Patterson, you're next, and then the Deputy Mayor. Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm glad to hear the congratulations for the 2021 grads for NCPS. For those on council and staff that didn't have the opportunity, I did submit a video on behalf of Clearview staff and council, wishing them well. This is the second year in a row that we've been virtual. Hopefully next year we'll be in the gym. And happy Canada Day. I think I'm gonna ask that we have a good time, maintain social distancing, and a little note about fireworks. Please note that there is an 8-meter distance separation between building structures. So when you're in the backyard, take a string 8 meters long, make sure that you're not overshadowing your neighbors or doing it at 12:30 at night. It's a fun activity, but have some consideration for your neighbors. So anyway, happy Canada Day. See you next council meeting.
Thank you, Councillor. All right, good messaging there. Deputy Mayor Burton, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just, first of all, I want to congratulate all the graduates on their success, and I want to wish everybody a happy Canada Day. I just like to mention that the mayor and I attended SIMCOE Comes Together, and we're involved in that, and we've also attended some council meetings with various things that are happening at council on an ongoing basis. Something interesting, though, to my colleagues who are on the Accessibility Committee, at our last NEC meeting that I was at a couple of weeks ago, there was an application for an additional suite for a member that was needed accessible needs, and auxiliary suites are not permitted on the NEC. And we went through quite a time, and I think that our accessibility people would be proud of me because I fought and got the commission to admit that the needs of the handicapped overruled the fact that we don't accept accessible suites, additional suites. So that was passed. So I just thought I'd share that.
Well done, Deputy Mayor. Good job. And that's important to continue to support that effort. So thank you for your efforts there and representing both us at Clearview Township as well as the county at SIMCOE when it comes to Niagara's Carbon Commission. I know our agendas can be quite lengthy and a lot of material to read, and I know the NEC agenda is like thick material. So good for you. Thank you very much for that. Members of council, I just have a couple things I'd like to mention. During the weekend, I had a request received to me from a member of Clearview Township, a citizen, who made a request for us to lower the flags in Clearview Township in recognition of the discovery of those 700 some burials at a former residential school in Saskatchewan. I contacted the CAO, and the CAO complied immediately. So again, our flags are again at half-mast across Clearview Township in recognition of that. Again, I don't know how long that will last, but that's the direction we're following through the federal government right now. It's also flying at half staff in regards to that. As a little bit of an update, I want to acknowledge that I have received many contacts, some emails, some phone calls in regards to our Indigenous land acknowledgement work that I'm working on your behalf. And the research continues. I've received a lot of very good information of recent, and I will probably be bringing something to council sometime in July. If I don't get that information back on one message that I've sent, maybe August, but nevertheless, I'm still working on it. And I want to acknowledge that, again, the ancestors of the Patuan peoples are in Oklahoma, and the Wyandots of Oklahoma are still existing today. And so I'm thinking I may, in fact, send some emails off to the Chief Friend is his name, Chief Billy Friend, who's from the Wyandot Nation, and we'll see what type of communication he may offer as advice. So I just wanted to update you as members of council, as well as the public, that that's one of the things I'm working on. Members of council, there is some other news from the township, and I asked the CAO if he would be available to help us describe what our intentions are going to be in the coming weeks regarding the administration center and having it have work return to the administration center. As you know, our staff have been working from home. Our staff have been working in an A-B shift opposite week format to reduce the personal contacts and prevent the spread of COVID-19. But as you also know, the business communities across our township are opening up. And so we're reassessing that as well. So I've asked if the CAO could outline for us some of the plans that he and the senior management have for return to operation or opening the administration center. John, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll start with just describing a little bit what the health unit is still recommending that employees do. Basically, unless it's essential, you're still asked to work from home. In some instances, staff will be required to come in to assist with other municipal services. The office will be open to provide service to the public 3 days per week starting in July 5th, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. As part of our process, we have to have a safety plan. So all visitors will be required to provide contact information, sign in, a phone number, time in and out, and so that we can contact trace in the event that there's a transmission. Screening the visitors will also have to occur. Had they had any cold symptoms in the last few days? Were they in contact with somebody with COVID? Have they been out of the country for the last 2 weeks? Also, have they been vaccinated? Questions such as that. The municipal lobby is capable of holding 8 people while social distancing. The health unit recommends permitting 25% capacity of the normal social distancing capacity. So if we interpret correctly, this would permit no more than 2 or 3 people in the lobby at any given time. Signs must be made to indicate social distancing of 2 meters is expected for those citizens waiting to enter from outside of the lobby. Just scroll down here to talk about a couple of the other things. Tammy's also looking into having a person in the lobby to verify screening questions, ensure the door handles are wiped, and to assure citizens sign in. Tammy is still seeking workers to perform this important task. Public bathrooms that are available for use are required to be cleaned every 2 hours. So we're reaching out to our cleaner to see what is possible. Our communication release will encourage citizens to phone and book an appointment to minimize unnecessary gathering and waiting times. Drew is working on the release. Our communication will also recommend, if you are intending to speak to a specific person, please call and book an appointment so you are certain that
I think he may have frozen. Give it a moment. Boom. Is he gone? Not sure. Anyway, Council, if you have any questions to the CAO in regards to the return to operations here at the Admin Center, I encourage you to reach out. The good news is for the public is that there will be at least 3 days a week that access to the building will be available. And we, again, just to remind, we want to encourage people to phone and make appointments if necessary, because again, with the staff working on A/B weeks, you may not have the person here that you're looking for. So we want to make sure that that we can continue to provide the government services that we do here at the municipality. So that's the good news. Hopefully, Mr. Ferguson can join us here again, but I'll carry on with my last comment, and that is, we are going to celebrate Canada Day, are we not? We have to. This is a beautiful country, and there is a lot to celebrate in our community. There's a lot of things that we need to reflect upon and to reflect upon in a positive light across our community and across our country. And we also want to make sure that we have inclusivity for all members. We're all working very hard to make sure that there's fairness in our community. And that's one of the things that I think is a tenet to the work that we do. So I look forward to seeing people on Canada Day. I will, as was mentioned by Councillor Walker, I'll be at the opening of the farmers market, and I'll hope to join many of you there and many of our residents at the farmers market in Stayner, and that'd be really exciting to do so. So we'll do that in a safe manner, and we'll celebrate our country. We are going to get through this, and I would encourage everybody to get their vaccinations and get their family vaccinated as well. CIO Ferguson, I see you've rejoined us. I think we pretty well wrapped what you were saying, but is there anything final you want to wrap with there?
I'm not sure what point I was cut off, but I was basically finished when I noticed I was cut off. So I think we're okay.
Okay. I just reminded members of council if they wish to have any questions to you to reach out to you, and I'm sure you'll be able to help them out. So this, just to clarify for the public, we're looking forward to this beginning on the 5th. Is that correct? The 5th of July is when you're aiming for, sir?
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent.
That's correct.
Let's be patient, folks, and let's hopefully we get through this. All right, members of council, nothing further. We'll move on to item number 12, which is on our agenda. We're doing quite well here to get through the agenda. Okay, Community Services, CS 037-2021, Committee of Adjustment for June 2021. Recommendation, be it resolved that Council of the Township Clearview hereby 1, receive CS 037, Committee of Adjustment for June 2021 report for information. Is there a mover and seconder on the committee of adjustment? Mr. Deputy Mayor Burton, Councillor Lamers, is there any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you very much. All right. Culture, Parks, Culture, Recreation, Youth Center. I think Courtney Rogers has been patiently waiting. Nice to see you, Courtney. Welcome again to our council meeting. I saw your name on the screen earlier, but it's nice to see you in person. PCR 013, it's the Youth Center Summer 2020 Operations Report. Be it resolved, the Council of the Township hereby one, receive the PCR 013 2021 Youth Center Summer 2020 Operations Report. For information, can I have a mover and seconder, and then we'll hear from Courtney. Mr. Walker and Mr. Broderick. Thank you very much. Hello, Ms. Rogers. What would you like to say about your awesome report?
Good evening, Mayor Measures and members of council. So I'm just here tonight basically to let everyone know what we are up to this summer and to give you a little recap. So obviously, we've had to close a lot in the last year and a half because of COVID, but I'm really proud of my team at the Youth Center because, we've really been able to create some really fantastic programs. You've heard about the activity kits. So something Deputy Mayor Burton asked me to pass along was some statistics on it, which was in the report, which in the last year, we have delivered across Clearview 750 kits in total. In 2020, we delivered to 81 individual youth. And so far this year, we have delivered to 98 youth. And we're only about halfway through the year. Really incredible. We put out our July activity kit sign up and it sold out overnight. And so there really is an appetite for these activity kits. And it's just so fantastic. We have been able to reach so many youth and we've got such great feedback from the youth, from the families. And mostly, we hear a lot from those communities and those, I think I've driven down every concession and side road and we've just got such great feedback that families are so happy we are able to deliver to them when before they haven't always been able to access our services. So for the activity kits, it's certainly been something we're going to continue even when we do open up full-time again in the fall, which is the plan pending COVID restrictions. Maybe not on a monthly basis, but certainly on some sort of continual basis to be able to continue that outreach. And so that's the last year. And this summer, we are going to do some programming in our parks across Clearview. We're going to do some programming at the Eco Park, which will be new this year, which we're really looking forward to create some environmental youth responsibility, which I think will be really important as well. And we're sponsoring some programs at the pool, which is also something new we haven't done before. So we're really expanding, and which is really great. We'll be at the farmers market all summer as well, selling baked goods that the youth are going to help us make. And so that's also something new as well. So we're excited to be back. We will be opening up this center. We do have permission from the health unit this summer, a couple days a week, and just kind of working back to that full-time capacity again. So yeah, all good stuff from us.
Great update. Thank you very much, Courtney. Continue doing what you're doing. Deputy Mayor Burton, you and the committee are obviously doing a great job working with our amazing staff. Tell us a little bit about it.
Thank you. I just want to, and I've missed the past couple of meetings because I've had conflicts with other county meetings and stuff. But I am just so pleased and so happy. And kudos to Courtney and your team for all that you've done, especially through COVID. It's just been remarkable, and it's just, I thank council for supporting this. This youth program that we started, I forget, 4 years ago now, Robert, 4 years ago, I think 5 years ago. And it's just growing and growing. And now with the additional staff, it's amazing. I hear nothing but good comments about it. And again, kudos to Courtney and her team. And well done. Very well done.
Great stuff. Any other members of council? All right. I'll wish you all the best there, Courtney. We have a motion on the floor. We have a mover and seconder. Council, I'm prepared to call the motion. All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you very much. Thank you, Courtney. And before you go, I just also want to acknowledge that you are helping us out with the some of the review work that's been going on with the Small Hall Festival and the Small Hall AODA compliance work. So I want to thank you for assisting Terry and his team to do that as well. Your input's appreciated. Thank you. Okay, members of council, we got another report from this department. The Stayner Downtown Open Space Improvement Plan, Phase 1 funding. Recommendation be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby one receive PCR 014. It's the Stayner Downtown Open Spaces Improvement Plan, Phase 1 funding. Report for information. Item 2, approve utilizing the budgeted items and capital grants reserve to offset the balance of $435,577 for the overall project of Phase 1 of the Stayner Downtown Revitalization Project. All right, can I have a mover and seconder, and then perhaps we'll get some discussion. Mr. Broderick, Mr. Walker, and Mr. CAO. I know that Terry is away on vacation. Are you going to be covering this report on his behalf, Mr. CAO?
I can cover aspects of it. On the finances, I believe Kelly's going to speak to the different funds that they'll be sourcing it from.
All right. And Kelly, do you have any comments you'd like to add to the report? It's a good report.
Thank you, Your Worship. You have to give Terry and Amanda credit for that. This report you have seen in the past. We're just kind of pounding out the final financing for some of the additional works that were put on. They are specifically road works. And we had received capital grants money for road rehabilitation. So we are bringing this report back to council, suggesting that this is a perfect project to use those grant monies on.
Okay, well done. Members of council, any questions to members of staff that are available? Okay, seeing none, I'm prepared. Thank you, staff. And thank you to Terry and Amanda for putting this report together. Council, I'm prepared to call the motion. All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you very much. All right, we're on to human resources. While it's human resources category, it's actually from the Accessibility Advisory Committee. So recommendation be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby one approve the purchase of 4 accessible swings for use within Clearview Parks. And item 2, that it be funded from the accessible capital budget. And I'll look for a mover and seconder on this motion. Mr. Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Leishman. And I see Tammy's with us. Hello, Tammy. Just for information, for anybody wondering, Tammy is our HR manager, but also she is our staff representative on the Accessibility Advisory Committee. Tammy, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Of course, at this very moment, my dog is asking to go outside. So if it barks, please forgive me. I'm sorry. I just wanted to provide to council a report, a very great initiative. Our Parks and Culture and Recreation Department has been asked if they can look into providing accessible swings for some of our young residents. And so our general manager, Terry, has provided a resource for purchasing those swings, and it's just about $7,200. For the 4 swings, one for each of our larger communities that have playground equipment in them. And the Accessibility Committee would really love to support this initiative and help our young residents enjoy our playgrounds.
Excellent. All right. Any questions to Tammy about the report or about her dog? Yes, Councillor Denis.
Tammy, you mentioned larger communities. There's 4 of them. Are you at liberty to let us know where they're going, please?
Yes, my apologies. Through Mayor Measures to Councillor Denis. I believe, if I'm correct in saying, it will be Creemore, Stayner, New Lowell, and Nottawa, I believe, are the parks that currently have swing sets located in them. Maybe Councillor Broderick, if he recalls if I'm correct or not. But I understand those to be our 4 swing set areas that can accommodate the swings.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Good point. And we do have some extensive parks in different areas in our community. So we'll see how this goes, to be honest, if this council decides to do this and move forward with this recommendation. So members of council, any further questions to either Tammy or to the CAO? So seeing none, thank you, Tammy, for that. Nice to see you. We'll let you take a little walk there if you need to.
Sorry about that. My apologies.
That's okay. No problem. It just makes the levity of the moment even better. Members of council, I'm prepared to call the motion. All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you very much. Thank you, Tammy. Council, item, here we are. And it's the FIN 019. It's the Clearview bank card and incoming money transfer procedure. A little update to our handling of some e-transferring going on here. Recommendation be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby one, receive the Clearview bank card and incoming money transfer procedure report for information. And item 2, approves the Clearview bank card and incoming money transfer procedure 2018-004 revision number 1. Okay, a mover and seconder on this motion, please. Mr. Broderick and Councillor Deneen. And before we go to Kelly on that, I just want to clarify, Clearview is not a bank. So the Clearview bank card is not a Clearview bank card. It's a bank card that's issued to Clearview Township by a Canadian bank. Kelly, take it away.
Thank you, Your Worship. I want to thank our HR manager taking the heat off of me this evening. That was very kind of her. This policy and procedure is basically to make the finance department's life a little easier and hopefully to make residents' life a little easier. Our current procedure allows for e-transfers for just the hall boards. And at this time, I am the only one that can go in and authorize and deposit those monies. With the new technology, TD has now authorized us to actually have the accounts automatically deposit into the correct bank account, depending on the email address it's sent to. So this procedure allows for that. It's also expanding the use of our e-transfers. So for situations like the medical center rents and things like that, we're allowing them, again, specifically to e-transfer to Creemore Medical Center, and it will automatically deposit into the account.
Okay.
And I'm available for questions.
Yeah, thank you. And I do have one question, if I can just jump ahead of everybody. There's been discussion, Councillor McKechnie and I were at a BIA meeting, and they were discussing whether they could get a point of sale sort of operation or is this something that you can assist them with? And would this policy assist the BIA with that type of procedure?
Thank you, Your Worship. There is potential for it. Sarah and I have been in quite a bit of discussion trying to pound out which would be the best option for them, whether a portable Interact terminal would work best, or I think she was looking more for something along the lines of a square. I'm not really keen on the security features with that as far as township funds go, but I am in conversations with Sarah trying to figure out the best solution for them.
Yeah. And just as a comment too, it's also similar that the Chamber of Commerce has programs available where they can get banking fees reduced by memberships. And so effectively the township is a member. So I don't know if it's one of the options that we could actually leverage or not. I don't know. Kelly, is there any thought of how we could leverage that opportunity through our membership in the Clearview Chamber of Commerce?
I will certainly broach it with the TD. I'm not tremendously hopeful. I know we do get breaks for all of our hall board accounts and the BIA accounts. They don't pay any bank fees. However, I'm not sure township-wide whether or not our main accounts would qualify for any kind of a discount, but I will certainly ask them.
Gotta ask, you know. All right, thank you very much. Members of council, any questions to Kelly? Sorry to jump ahead of you guys. You know, I let you guys go ahead a lot, but it was my turn. Anybody with any questions to Kelly or staff? All right, seeing none. Thank you, Kelly. And council, you've got the motion, and I've got a mover and seconder, so I'm prepared to call the motion. All those in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you very much, council. We are on to page number 5, item 13, notice of motion or any new business. I don't think there's any notice of motions that have been provided, and there's no new business at this time. Item number 14 is the bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting. Recommendation be it resolved that bylaw 2168, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the June 28, 2021 council meeting be presented and read a first, second, and third time, finally passed on the 28th day of June 2021. Mover and seconder on the bylaw, please. Mr. McKechnie, Mr. Walker, and any questions? I'll call the motion. All those in favor? And the bylaw carries. And item number 15 is our motion to adjourn. Before I read the motion to adjourn, I just want to again acknowledge that we are still going to aim for a sort of a special council meeting to discuss the roads request for any changes you councillors may hear from your constituents or from residents across the township in regards to traffic calming. Some of the discussion we've had in previous meetings regarding speed reductions. That meeting is yet to be determined. The clerk and I have discussed it briefly, and we are aiming for something in July, perhaps 3 weeks, 4 weeks out. It'll be after the meeting on the 12th, but it'll just be a special meeting. So at this time, I just want to remind members of council to please get your requests into the clerk's office. Please copy me, and that way then we can assemble enough of a meeting to actually have a meeting, as well as give information and heads up to members of our staff in the Public Works Department to review some of those requests. So that's just a friendly reminder to all members of council. If that information, if you have, get it into the clerk's office, and we'll start assembling that special meeting as soon as we can. Any questions on that before I call the motion to adjourn? Everybody comfortable? Okay. Members of council, recommendation be it resolved that council meeting be adjourned at 7:50 p.m. Can I have a mover and seconder on the adjournment? Councillor Deneen, Councillor Broderick, and I'll call the motion. All those in favor? Excellent. Thank you very much for joining us here at council here tonight. As always, I wish you all the best, and I want to say, go Habs. Good night, everybody.
Have a happy